Today, we take care of some old, worn-out engine mounts on the NX2000. Welcome back to the Auto Obsessive Garage. Chadwick with you again for another installment of Project NX2K. That is our 1993 Nissan NX2000 that you see right here. Today, guys, we have this issue we have to resolve. It's an annoying issue. It's a vibration issue. We have a ton of vibration coming through the car. The steering wheel shaking, the whole interior shaking. Engine mounts. Now, there are 3 engine mounts on the NX2000. And there's a transmission mount. We are only doing the engine mounts as the transmission mount has been recently replaced. I'm gonna show you guys how to do all 3. Let's get in the garage and get a little dirty. Kind of a bummer. Our NX2000 has a horrible engine vibration. Gotta be those motor mounts. Now in this vehicle, there are 3 mounts, and I wanna show you each one and where they go. This little fella here goes on the passenger side, right side of the vehicle, kind of up against the side there. This little fella is dead center in the front, hangs down like this. And the third one is on the rear of the engine, and it's this guy right here. Now that's not very useful without me showing you, so I'm gonna show you where they are and my plan of attack. Now only one of the engine mounts on the NX2000 is truly accessible from the top. It's gonna be this guy right here. That was that shiny one I showed you at the beginning. Now to access him, we're gonna probably pull this coolant reservoir out of there. It should slide right up, and then we can kind of fold it off, put it out of the way, and we should be good to go to access that. Now the other ones, underneath the car, we go. Now the first one, that's pretty easy. That's super accessible, right? So you can see it right here, right on the front of the engine there. It's attached to this bracing that runs front to back. Now, let me show you where the rear one is, because this is a little tricky. And you can really see it better. Let me slide under the exhaust. We'll go to the passenger side of the vehicle. Man, it's dark under here. I'm sorry if my light gives a strobe effect. Oh yeah, it does. But you can see it right here. That's the bolt going through it. Boy, this is good. This is good quality film, isn't it? There you go. I got it super bright right there. You can see that bolt. That is the rear one. Now, hear me out on this one, guys. This entire bracing piece that runs front to back is connected with 4 bolts. So if I just remove those 4 bolts and remove the bolt holding each engine mount to the actual vehicle, I should be able to drop that with the engine mount still attached, which would make replacing those mounts extremely easy. The front one, yeah, that's not gonna be a problem on the car, but this rear one looks like it's gonna be a real beast. So I say we just do that. We'll loosen the bolts holding the engine mounts and then we'll drop this whole thing down. That's the plan anyway. What could go wrong? Hey, first things first, let's get this coolant overflow reservoir out of here. Should just slide. Which way do you want to go, buddy? There we go. And we just kind of tuck him right over there. Now we have a pretty good shot, and I can see that that engine mount is pretty worn. I'll show you guys in just a moment. Now, what you have to do before you start doing these bolts is the weight of the vehicle is going to be on this one bolt, this center bolt going through. So you need to get the engine's weight up a little bit. We're already in a lift. What I'm gonna do is put a couple little sections of 2x4 on my floor jack under the oil pan and carefully push the engine block up, and that'll take that stress off that bolt so we can get it out of there. And here's our floor jack. We got a couple of pieces of 2x4 on there. Let's go ahead and position under the car, under the oil pan, and carefully relieve a little bit of that engine weight. And there you can see the worn out bushing. That's the bolt we gotta take off. I think there's a total of 4 we need to take off on this one. So let's go ahead and do that now that we have the jack underneath pushing up the oil pan, taking some of that weight off. Something that's gonna save us a lot of grief is removing this little bracket that the coolant reservoir was on. So a little 10mm bolt in there. And there's that bracket and bolt removed. Now before I go ahead and start twisting on that thing, and I'm definitely not jumping in with a impact because God, breaking those bolts is a dang nightmare. I'm gonna go ahead and soak it in some PB Blaster. There we go, we got the stuff. Let's hit up all the bolts and then we'll crawl under the car and we'll get that other bracing piece and everything else that needs to come out. All right, let's get at it. Everything looks like it's a 14mm bolt. Start with these ones. All right guys, here's all the hardware. You got the long one, 3 other bolts. And there's our mount. Oh, yep, time for a new one. We got our new engine mount next to our old one. You come in and see how solid this looks. Obviously brand new, no cracks. The old one, very deep cracks in there. And that's what's gonna cause the vibration, right? Because that bolt going through there has a lot of play. When there are deep cracks like that, it's just gonna move around a lot. And look at the gap here versus the new one. There's just so much more room, it's worn out. This thing's just gonna cause your car to feel horrible. And look at that huge crack up here too. Yeah, this thing's beat up, guys. And that's what's gonna cause that vibration. And you're gonna feel it at idle, you're gonna feel it throughout the rev range. It's just the way it is. Installation's pretty much the opposite of taking the part out. So we've got our new unit right here. Our new little fresh engine mount. We're gonna slide it right in. Slide this guy through first. See if we're in the right ballpark here. Now this is kind of a game here where you have to fish around and get that straight through. Heck yeah, got it. That's the hardest part, so that means we're in a good spot. Let's put the rest of these bolts in. And for you hardcore by the books guys out there, these are 33 to 40 foot-pounds of torque, all of these bolts, including the ones we're gonna do on the bottom of the engine. So keep that in mind this entire job, which is nice that Nissan did that, 33 to 40. I actually have my clicker style old school snap-on set to 38. I like it a little tighter. And we can go ahead and check. Oh wow. There we go. Nice. Okay, go around, check all your bolts. Same with the bottom of the engine. 33 to 40. Again, I'm doing 38 foot-pounds. All right, with this motor mount bolted down, torqued to spec, time to put our little bracket to hold our coolant reservoir back in place. Ta-da! Like we were never there. And we've got our jack in place with the wood to hold the oil pan and the engine up while we take these other engine mounts off. Always want to do that to keep the engine right where it is. And for that front engine mount, we're going to hit this bolt up here. It's a 14 millimeter. Everything under here is 14, including these guys on the little bracing that goes underneath. So I love how Nissan made it easy. You don't have to switch tools a lot for this job, but yeah, let's get that bolt out of that engine mount right there. Also, just to clarify, the back side of that 14 has a 14 millimeter nut. So it's not a captive nut. You have to put something back there to stop it from spinning. So use a regular open-ended wrench on the back there to secure it while you twist this bolt out. Just a little tip there. There you go. That's the bolt with the nut removed from that front engine mount. Time to get the rear one. That's 14 millimeter bolt, and we should be able to drop that whole support beam down with both engine mounts on it. It's going to take 4 14 millimeter bolts, and we should be able to drop it. There we have it. There's that support beam with both motor mounts right on there. Super accessible. Way easier than changing them out on the car. Awesome. Yeah, use a good impact to get those big bolts out. They are pretty beefy. I mean, take a look at these guys. 4 of them, identical. We'll clean all that up. We'll clean this whole area up. But yeah, easy enough. Just swap these motor mounts now. All right, let's get these motor mounts off. Everything is a 14 millimeter bolt. I love you, Nissan. This is what I'm talking about. The good old days. Yep. There's the front one. It's not, yeah, look at this. That's not holding much together, is it? That's just floppy in there. I mean, yeah, not as floppy. Yeah, might still help our condition, let's hope. Just gonna use the power tool to snug her up. Also, just a reminder that all these torque settings or torque specs are exactly the same as well. And man, that's what I'm talking about. So we have our handy dandy clicker style torque wrench, old reliable here as I like to call her, set to 38 pound-feet. Let's get her done. There we go, front one on. Let's get the rear off. All right, 2 little bolts. Here's that rear engine mount, and it just looks, yeah, it's a little chewed up. So we'll be putting that fresh one in there.
We can't put dirty bolts back on there either, can we? Certainly could not do that. That's just rude. Look how good this hardware looks. This is a car that was definitely, I think it was an Indiana car, but they clearly did not use this thing in the winter because it is not showing any corrosion. I mean, if your hardware underneath looks this good, boy, that's a sign, right? Kind of a side-by-side before and after, right? Look at that difference, guys. No one will ever see these bolts. Alright, torque to spec. Very cool. Alright, I'm going to clean this up before I throw it back on the car because it's the right thing to do. Let's do it up. This is weight reduction for all the grease and grime I'm removing, right? I'd get down with that theory. We're ready to put this back up on the vehicle. Okay, everything under the car is bolted up, torqued down to spec, 38 pound-feet. Now, a little secret I found is you actually don't want to put those bolts through the engine mounts first. You want to kind of get these bolts on the end, almost all the way in, so there's still some play in that support beam, and then you want to slide the bolts through and then tighten everything up. That's just the way you want to do it. You also have to adjust the engine height, so using your jack when I had everything supported, and I switched over to the transmission side to kind of support it, up and down to line up the holes, to line those bolts up. The last thing you want to do is put that bolt through that rear engine mount. Just keep playing around with the height of the engine, and eventually you'll get everything to work, but keep everything loose until you're ready to tighten up, and we are good. Everything's torqued to spec. Next thing we have to do, start the car and see if she vibrates like she did before. Hopefully not. And for those not in the know, there is a transmission mount right here. I did have a record that was completed not even 5,000 miles ago, so that's a fresh one. Now, if you are still getting vibrations after you do your engine mounts, it could be your transmission mount too, but this one's fresh. That's the only reason I'm not replacing it. I just did all 3 engine mounts. So let's see if that took care of our vibration. All right, now before, when I started this car up, guys, it would just shake. I mean, right now, if I was to film this, you'd see the steering wheel vibrating and the image would be kind of shaking around, the gauges moving. So let's give it a test and see if our engine mount replacement actually worked. It is so freaking composed in here. Nothing's shaking. Wow, guys. And I usually do a test where you put your hand out and you hold your pinky. My pinky is barely moving. And we're still like cold cycle, right? We're still above 1,000 RPM as the car warms up, cold start. Before this thing was just going everywhere. Awesome, guys. Engine mounts fixed our vibration.